In this video, I'm going to be covering 5 steps that you can follow right now to go out and start advertising your business, even if you've never advertised before. This is the exact process I followed to grow my business from 0 to 5 million in 3 years. And it's the exact same process we've taught to thousands of clients when they got started first advertising their business. And these 5 steps are the only things required, meaning by the end of this video, you're going to have everything you need to go out and start making more sales. And I say that because more often than not, the thing that stops business owners from actually starting is not that they don't know what to do, it's that they don't feel like they're ready. And so they watch another video or buy another course. But the truth is, you do know what to do. Well, you will at the end of this video. And so if after this video, you don't start taking action to grow your business, then you are a procrastinator. So let's get started. Step 1 is understanding what advertising actually is. You see, most people think marketing and advertising is a confusing topic, but really it can be broken down into 2 parts. You have the market, and you have the message. The market is who you're trying to speak to, and the message is what you're saying to them to get them to respond. And in the past, both these 2 things were weighed more or less equally. However, today, because of online advertising, the market side of things is something that needs much less attention. The reason for that is because every online platform is optimizing for one single thing: your attention. And so if you put out a message to a group of people and that group of people engage with it, then whether you like it or not, that platform is going to show it to more of those types of people. On the other hand, if you put out a message and no one responds, then it doesn't matter how good your targeting is, your market isn't going to see it. And so very often business owners start out focused on how can I improve my targeting? When in reality, if you just focus on improving your messaging, the targeting takes care of itself. And so the first step is getting clear on your message, meaning who am I trying to speak to and what do I need to say so that they'll respond? And I have an entire video covering messaging, which I'll link in the description below, so you can watch that after this, but then after that, no more videos. So once you've got your messaging, step 2 is figuring out what is your goal. And one of the biggest misconceptions about advertising and marketing is that you make sales from marketing, when in reality, marketing is just the first step of what could be many steps of the sales process. And so the first thing we want to do is get clear on what is the goal, meaning what do I want people to do? If you're selling a product, it might be buying the product. If you're selling a service, it might be booking a call. Once we know the goal, we can then work backwards. And so the next question we could ask is, what would someone need to be ready to take that action? Again, if you're selling a product, what would they need to know about the product? If you want people to book a call, what would that person need to know in order to book a call? That process of warming people up is what we call the nurture process. And things like content or emails or a training video or a sales page could all be used to nurture. Keep in mind, the nurture process that you use will depend on what it is you're selling. For example, if you're selling a $10 product, you'll probably need a simple sales page in order for someone to be ready to buy. On the other hand, if you're selling a $10,000 product, you may need more steps in your nurture process to warm someone up enough to be ready to take that action. And so once we know the goal and the nurture process, we can then think about how are we actually getting people here? What method do we use to get prospects' attention so that they can start this process? And that is called lead generation. And the goal of lead generation is to get your market interested so that they respond. Once they respond, they move into the nurture process. And from there, hopefully we achieve the goal. Some examples of lead generation strategies could be running ads or reaching out to someone or posting on social media. Once we understand the goal, the lead nurture process, and the lead generation process, we can then move into step 3, which is picking one single strategy to start with. And people might tell you that you need to do 100 different things to market your business, but that's very rarely the case. And there's 2 main reasons. Number 1 is, like I said, the main factor that determines the success of marketing is the message. And so if you're putting out a message using one strategy and people aren't responding, then it's unlikely a new strategy is going to be any different because the message is the same. And so instead, we want to use one strategy to test the message. And that can take some time. You might need to change it and improve it. But by doing that, once you have a good message, then you can use that on any strategy and it will work. If you don't have a good message, no strategy, no matter how effective, is going to be successful. The second reason comes down to the amount of effort that's actually required to make any strategy work. What most people do is they do a bit of everything. They might post on social media and send an email and then write a blog article, and none of it works. The reason is they're not doing enough on any single strategy to make it effective. Instead, they try to do too many things and none of them work. To give you an example, if I was to write an ad, I wouldn't write one ad. I might write 5 or 10 ads, and from that, I'd likely find one that works well. But keep in mind, I've been doing this for a very long time. If you're just starting out, it might take you 50 or 100 ads that you need to write to find one that works. And so if you just write one ad and do one post and send one email, you're going to say this isn't working. It's not because those strategies don't work, it's because you're not doing enough. And so if you're posting content, you might need to post 3 to 5 times a day over weeks to figure out what works. If you post once and it's seen by 3 people, including your mum, it's not enough. If you're sending messages out to prospects and you send 5 and no one replies, again, not enough. You might need to send 100 or 200 messages a day to start to see a result. And so the reason you want to focus on one strategy at the start is because the amount of effort it takes to make one strategy work does not give you enough time to focus on 3 or 4 or 5 strategies. You're much better off doing one thing well than 5 things poorly. And keep in mind, the strategy you use here doesn't really matter. We've tested pretty much every strategy there is and spent a lot of money testing it. And if you have the right message, anything can work. Again, without the right messaging, nothing does. So step 1, figure out your messaging. Step 2, identify your goal, your nurture and lead generation process. Step 3, pick one strategy to focus on as you improve and optimize your messaging. Which brings us to step 4, which is start. And I know what you're thinking. Start? I don't even have a website. What about a logo? Don't I need a 12-step email automation? No, not yet. All of those things reflect your messaging. And right now, you don't know if your messaging is good. And so building out additional assets with that messaging, which will likely change, is just a waste of time. And so how do we know if our messaging is good? Well, we don't. The only way to know is by having our market respond to it. Only they know if it's good because it's for them. You can't decide if your messaging is good. Your market decides. And so how do we get them to respond? Well, they need to see it. How they see it, we need to start. The other thing to keep in mind is that what defines good messaging is not an objective measure. It's subjective based on comparison, meaning something can only be good if it's better than something else. And keep in mind, marketing isn't just you putting a message in front of your market. It's you, as well as every other competitor, putting out a message to that same market. And so if you want good messaging, really what you need is better messaging than all of your competitors. And if they've tested 100 variations of their messaging to find what works, then you've got some work to do. And that work can only start if you start. I know, hard work, lame, but it makes winning that much sweeter. Step 5 is improvement. So you pick a strategy, you start after this video, and you do enough of that to see if the market responds. If they don't, change the messaging. If they do, great, it's working. At that point, you can start to look at adding a second strategy or channel to complement the main strategy you're using. And so for example, if your main strategy is running ads, you might start posting some content to help. If your main strategy is reaching out to people, you might start sending some emails. Keep in mind that secondary strategy is just that, a secondary strategy, meaning the volume is going to be significantly less than if it were your main strategy. And so again, if your main strategy to generate leads is posting content, you might be posting 3 or 5 times a day. If you're using content as a secondary strategy, it might be 1 or 2 times a week. If your main strategy is running ads, maybe you're spending $50 a day. If running ads is your secondary strategy, maybe you spend $5 a day. The thing you want to keep in mind is that one strategy is more than enough to grow beyond $100,000 a month. And while a second strategy can help, it's not essential. And so if you're below that point, instead of adding more additional channels to try to help, instead focus on the main one and get that working first. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that everything you do should have a purpose. Meaning if you're starting a new strategy, is the goal to generate leads or to nurture them? There's a lot of noise online telling you need to do all these different things, but if you understand this, you'll be able to stay focused. If something doesn't help lead generation or lead nurture, it's probably a waste of time. And if those 2 areas are already performing, then you don't need anything else. This also helps when you're figuring out how much of something you should be doing. You might watch a Gary Vee video and he says to post 30 times a day, but if posting content isn't your primary method of generating leads, then you can post much less, and that's okay. If it is your main method, then you might need to post more. So with every strategy, you want to ask, what is the purpose? Is it generating leads or nurturing them? And is it my primary method or secondary? And that's really it. There is no secret strategy. It's all about having good messaging and using one strategy at the start to put it in front of people. Then using that to improve the messaging so that it's effective. If you can get to that point, then any marketing strategy can work. But if you can't, then none will. And so if you'd like to learn more about messaging, check out the video linked below. And after that, it's time to get to work. Also subscribe and then watch the video. Actually like, and you can comment as well. So like, comment, subscribe, watch the video, get to work.